squelch my cry of relief. I'd never been so glad to see anyone in my whole life. I stood to shake Steve's hand, and Jack shifted away from me. Steve, my lawyer, ignored my outstretched hand and pulled me into a completely inappropriate hug. "Are you drunk?" I asked as I pulled back. He smelled like the floor of a dive bar, stale beer and cigarettes. "Maybe? Had quite a night. Slept in my suit, but new tie." He held it out and waved it a bit like a flag. For sure he was drunk. Jack sighed dramatically in disgust. "It didn't take you long to fall right back to your old life, a lawyer like that," he muttered just loud enough for me to hear. And there it was, my old life, the one I'd left in the dust when Jack proposed, thinking myself saved from the uncertainty, saved from my worst instincts, saved from people like Steve. But Steve, with his rumpled suit and apologetic smile, had been nothing but kind to me. I looked from him to Jack, and all I could think was that Steve had probably had more fun on his epic Tuesday night than Jack had allowed himself to have in 15 years. I shot Jack a look and then looped my hand through Steve's arm. "Plenty of time," I said, and let him lead the way toward the courthouse and the start of my new life. "Your Honor, as you can plainly see, I have been the primary breadwinner over the duration of our marriage. My wife's hobby job was but a small contribution. As she is the one who has brought these proceedings, I must ask that I be released from the obligation of supporting her further." The sound of his voice, this particular tone, made me reflexively sit up taller, check to see that only the top 2 buttons of my blouse were undone, to smooth back my hair and make sure nothing was out of place. It was that last part that reminded me I didn't have to do as I was told anymore. My hair was down and untamed, my red waves hung unrestrained down my back, and I went from anxious to angry in a hot second. I leaned in and whispered in Steve's ear, "Hobby job? Does he mean the one he insisted I take instead of pursuing my career as a photojournalist?" I was seething. Steve patted my hand to calm me and switched his angle to reply. "He also shouldn't be speaking at all. That's what his lawyer is for." Yeah, there was little to no chance Jack wasn't going to speak. That would be ceding control to someone else. Even if he was paying that someone else, and that someone else was an expert in his field, no one knew better than Jack. Except, apparently, this judge. "Mr. Spencer, there is no need for your personal pleas in my courtroom. Unless you're called upon, your voice in these proceedings belongs to your lawyer. Do you understand?" "But, Your Honor," Jack flashed what I knew to be his most charming smile, "I just wanted to make sure you understood my perspective." The judge, unlike most people, was not moved by Jack. "A court of law is not the place for individual perspective. If the court wishes to hear from you, we will let you know." It was almost worth the drama I'd gone through during arbitration to see that smile disappear and hear someone have authority over Jack. The funny part about all of this was he had no reason to be pleading his case anyway. We'd already negotiated down to the last fork in our drawer, which, by the way, he'd gotten. I'd already agreed to take no spousal support in exchange for keeping the house, though I didn't really want that either. Too many memories of a life controlled entirely by the man who sat at the opposing table. I'd come to realize in the months we'd been separated that I felt lonelier sitting next to him than I did when I was actually alone. Steve had argued against my concessions, telling me by law I was entitled to more, but I didn't want more. I just wanted out. When I'd married Jack, that control had seemed like stability and love to a girl who grew up with neither. Structure was a comfort. But over the years, from our friends to my job to the clothes I wore, Jack decided it all, and comfort changed to control. "Your Honor, I appreciate your candor. I just want to say one last thing." What that might have been, we'd never know, as the judge pounded his gavel to quiet the courtroom. He declared us divorced upon signature of the papers before him, and then he turned to exit the courtroom, but not before giving me a sympathetic look, as if to say he didn't blame me one bit. "That's it?" I asked Steve. "That's it.